of that chapter in verse 1, it said, "Now the word of the Lord came to Jonah." And then if you move on to verse 3, now, first of all, let's just go to what God told Jonah to do. "Arise and go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it." So if we go back to even like what the verb of a storm is, one of them was a public outcry or a fuss. So basically, God was instructing Jonah for you to go tell in a very, let's just say in a very expressive way, to Nineveh that their wickedness has come up before me. So God pretty much wants to use Jonah to go alert them that God is not happy with you. So, but Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish. Or is it Tarshish? We're going to get it right. But if you're following me, you can see what it says. "From the presence of the Lord." How is it that Jonah really thought that he was going to be able to escape God? Same here with me. You know, how many times any of us have at least known to do the right thing, which is to do a righteous thing or walk in a righteous aspect, and have chose to go the other direction because we wanted to do our own thing and not just do the right thing. Or for us believers, we know God asked us to do this, but we allowed influences outside of your relationship with God to have you steer you in another direction, or a distraction maybe. It could have been easily you weren't supposed to watch that football game when God told you to read something in the Word, or to call this person up and minister to them, or to go volunteer somewhere and serve, or whatever it may be. Or even it could be, spend time with your family, but you decided to work overtime. And then now you're upset because your wife or your children are getting on you because you're not around enough. Whatever it may be. So moving on. In verse 4, "But the Lord sent out a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up." Verse 5, "Then the mariners were afraid, and every man cried out to his God. Every man cried out to his God, and threw the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone down into the lowest parts of the ship and lay down and was fast asleep. So the captain came to him and said to him, 'What do you mean, sleeper? Arise, call on your God. Perhaps your God will consider us so that we may not perish.'" Now, so God sent the wind. So God sent the wind to cause a disturbance. He sent the storm. And so I wrote something down here saying that storms come in our lives to blow us back in the right direction by us becoming humble before God to see what direction He is calling us to walk in. So God sent a storm, a great wind on the sea to kind of shake things up. Because just because we're awake doesn't mean we're awake. But it caused a disturbance, and everyone on the crew, and when things are going on, even in you're talking to people around you, things are going on with your friend here, things are going on with your wives, things are going on with your kids, things are going on here. And a lot of times when you're hearing things going on with other people, you will rarely hear, first of all, you'll rarely hear, "We just need to pray about this," or "I don't know what I'm going to do." And of course, if it has to do with finances, what I need to do is work overtime. I need to make more money. Or Some people who are out there in the street, or people who used to be in the street and then they don't feel like a real job's working for them. They may say, well, you know what? I got to go back to doing what I was doing. So when the people start cried out to, it says every man cried out to his God. So basically, when a storm comes, who is the God you cry out to? Is it the one and only true God? If you're a believer, is it your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Or is it money? Or is it a man or a woman or another human being that you feel like they're always been there for you, so they're going to help you. But then when they're not there to help you, then who do you call on? Or is your God taking a snort of some cocaine? Is your God shooting up with some heroin? Or is your God smoking that cigarette? Or is your God hitting that bottle? At that moment in time, what is it? I know here over the holidays, there was a lot going on here, me and my family, and here and there. I indulged in a few glasses of wine. And it wasn't like, every day I had a whole bunch of glasses of wine or anything. It was a here and there. I was indulging in wine, and I really don't even drink like that. How I used to drink, and don't even drink, daily or every day. But just for me to even do that at times when I was done with the glass or so, there was a conviction. But I immediately, just talked to God about it. I'm saying, all right, God, well, obviously I know that that's not the answer. So just, I pray for peace. I talk with him, and a lot of times, when you've also been, whether, especially like an addict, if you've been clean for something so long, with a lot of meetings too, and what you need to be careful of is that you don't actually start to slip back so much, because all it takes is a taste of bad to all the way to lead to your death. So you definitely have to be mindful, and realize, and not be shameful in running back to God, because sometimes you could do one little small thing wrong and then run with that and think, oh my God, God's not going to forgive me. Oh my God. Or, because you thought, let's say for the Christians out there, that, once I became a Christian or whatever, I did this bad thing, so I'm no longer good in God's eyes, and that's not even the case, and that's the trick of the enemy. But doesn't mean like you continue doing your bad. I mean, because God will forgive you. But what I'm saying is God wants you to seek him first. And you're wrong when you're mad, when you're sad, when you're angry, when you're crying. And if we go back to the verb of what the storm is, like I said, move angrily or forcefully in a specified direction. Obviously, you could tell by what Jonah did, because the title of the chapter 1 is Jonah's disobedience. You know what I'm saying? God told Jonah to do one thing. Guess what? Jonah basically, stumped off and did his own thing and went to a whole nother city and thinking he's going to get in a boat and he's going to flee God's presence because of where God talked to him at. Let me tell you something. If God talked to you, even if you were in the bathroom, taking a shower, on the toilet, and he asked you to do something, but you completely just don't do it, you're being a storm. You're a walking commotion. You stumping off, acting like a spoiled child, or you just plain out being disobedient. God could be calling you to work on building your vision. God could be calling you out to just minister to people because you are a disciple and you're so wrapped up in thinking that you really just always got to protect your own self and your soul, that you forget that you really got a job to do with helping saving other souls. And then things start not going your way and everything. And you're thinking because you're trying to be mindful of your own sins, and then you're not ministering to anybody, but things are going shifty and going wrong, that that either the enemy's under attack or you don't know what's going on, and you're trying to ask God, and God's pretty much, letting certain things happen to let you know, hey, you need to humble yourself to me so you can really listen to me again, because you're not paying attention to what I'm trying to tell you. So storms can actually lead us to obedience. It's our disobedience sometimes that brings the storms in our life, especially if you have a relationship with God. They can be there to test you and everything else. But obviously, God is using a storm with Jonah. He's using the storms with Jonah to get his attention, cause a disturbance, and let him know that I'm over here too. You thought you left Nineveh, but you forgot that I control the winds. So I'm the creator of the winds and the seas and everything. It doesn't matter where you go. I can touch you. God's hand is in everything. So now everyone's coming after their God. The people on the boat want to come to Jonah and wake him up. Now, for him to still be asleep in the boat and everything going like this, it must have been actually even his relationship with God in some aspect, if you maybe think about it. That's not an assumption. I'm not saying that's what happened. That even made him feel comfortable that he could sleep in the middle of a storm. How many of y'all can sleep when the storm is in your life? I mean, I so wish that somebody would come on right now, you know what I'm saying, and come in here while I'm talking. I can't wait till people really start doing that. But how many people, when things are going on in their life, can sleep? That's something, to really think about. A lot of people get that anxiety, they get insomnia. And that's when some people, when things do start going wrong, they'll go back to what they were doing because they felt that was really helping them when things were bad then, when that was really making things worse. So what they may go ahead and let me hit something, or they may have a few drinks because it's, I need some rest, because you want a peace of mind. Something that cannot be bought at Kroger, Publix, or anything is a peace of mind. You can't even ball that up and put a patent on it. The only one who has a patent to that is Christ himself. So I also wrote another quote here that says, the creator of storms is also the creator of peace. So in verse 7, it reads, and they said to one another, come, let us cast lots, that we may not know for whose cause this trouble has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, please tell us, for whose cause is the trouble upon us? What is your occupation, and where do you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you? So at the end of the day, they all don't figure it out that, hey, this didn't happen till you came on my. How many times that, you've accepted somebody into your life and you not really know their background or anything. And for some reason, things start going wrong when you're around this person, because you start, realizing that, there's something different about them, or their energy is not good, or before you know it, it's like every time you're around that person, something bad happens, and then you still, before you know it, you kind of end up become that person. And now, you don't realize that person is actually a storm in your life. You become the company that you're keeping. And I mean, that's how I ended up getting involved even in drugs. I was in the party scene for a while, more than a while, but also I was a promoter. And, even when I got more into the party scene, when you're the one creating the atmosphere for being under the influence of all type of things, but in the world's eyes, it's a good time, then it's easy for you to also be the one consuming that. Because I definitely was one of the ones that never thought I would. At one point, I was around drugs and wasn't the one doing it. I was just a smoker and cigarette smoker and weed smoker, and that was it. But after a while, that was more than enough. So, long story short, eventually, if you read on to the story, they throw Jonah into the sea. The whale comes. God sends a whale to save him. So even in disobedience, God showed grace, which we don't realize that even in our storms, there is God's grace that really keeps the flood from coming in. So he has you in the mouth, in the belly of a whale. And if you don't even take the time to realize that, because of our complaining and us fussing and us not trusting, we still don't acknowledge that, that God is still being graceful to us. He's got us in his hand. He's got us he's got us in the mouth of the whale to keep us from actually drowning.